Don't insult my wife, Julian Hart's voice echoed across the Chicago ice rink, silencing the crowd as Harmony Brooks stood tall, her diamond tiara sparkling. A black skater's dream is under attack, but can a moment of defiance shatter stereotypes and spark a global movement? Where are you listening? Drop your city and guess. How will Harmony turn vandalism into victory? Subscribe to see our latest stories of courage and justice, and share this with your friends to spread the spark. Will her talent on the ice change stereotypes? Can a pair of sapphire skates change fates? Join us on a 50-minute journey to discover why Harmony's victory is more than a crown. It's a revolution. Share your thoughts, comment on your city, and subscribe for more inspiring stories. Come explore. Don't miss how one woman rewrote the rules. The Chicago Ice Arena was a cathedral of frost, its air crisp with the scent of polished ice and anticipation. At 6:45 a.m., the rink lay quiet, its glassy surface a blank canvas under the soft hum of fluorescent lights. Dawn's first rays filtered through high windows, casting a golden sheen that danced across the ice like a promise. In the center of this frozen stage, Harmony Brooks glided with the grace of a swan, her blades carving whispers into the silence. At 28, she was a vision, her dark skin radiant against the emerald green leotard that hugged her athletic frame, her long, glossy black hair tied in a sleek, high ponytail that swayed with each turn. Her brown eyes burned with a fire that no cold could extinguish, each spin a testament to a dream she'd cradled since childhood. Harmony had been 6 when she first saw figure skating on a grainy VHS tape, her mother's old television flickering in their modest Chicago apartment. The skaters, twirling like music-made flesh, had stolen her breath. She'd pressed her small hands against the screen, tracing their arcs, vowing to one day claim the ice as her own. Now, 2 decades later, she was no longer that wide-eyed girl, but a woman on the cusp of greatness, training for the Windy City Ice Crown, a competition that could catapult her to global stages. The diamond-encrusted tiara, awarded to the winner, was more than a prize. It was a beacon, a chance to perform in Paris, Tokyo, and Dubai, to etch her name among the sports legends. From the bleachers, a solitary figure watched, his presence as steady as the rink's steel beams. Julian Hart, her husband of 3 years, sat with his tailored navy coat draped over broad shoulders, his blue eyes soft with pride. At 32, he was a tech billionaire, his company Hart Tech, a $4 billion empire built on innovation. Yet here, in the quiet of the morning, he was simply Harmony's anchor, her loudest cheer. His sandy blonde hair caught the light as he leaned forward, hands clasped, watching her execute a triple Lutz with breathtaking precision. The ice sang beneath her blades, a high, clear note that echoed in the empty arena. "You're unstoppable, Harmony," he called, his voice warm, cutting through. The chill, her lips curved into a smile, bright as the dawn, her ponytail swinging like a metronome of joy. Julian had been her rock since they met 5 years ago at a charity gala, where she'd been a guest performer, skating under starlit lanterns. He'd approached her not with the arrogance of wealth, but with a quiet awe, captivated by her strength. When he proposed a year later, he didn't offer a ring but a pair of custom sapphire blue figure skates, their leather engraved with "Unbreakable." They were more than a gift. They were a vow, a recognition of the battles she'd fought in a sport that often saw her skin before her skill. Harmony had faced whispers her whole career, too black, too bold, too other for the lily-white world of figure skating. Judges had scored her harshly, sponsors overlooked her, rink staff questioned her presence. Yet Julian saw her as she was, a queen, her power in her grace, her defiance in her glide. Now, as she spun, her emerald leotard, catching flecks of light like scattered jewels, Harmony felt the weight of those years, but also the lift of her dream. Tonight at 7:00 p.m., the arena would fill with 3,000 spectators, their eyes judging, their applause a currency she'd earn with every leap. The ice crown wasn't just about glory, it was about proving she belonged, that her place on the ice was undeniable. She landed a double axel, her blade slicing clean arcs, and glanced at Julian. His nod was a silent promise. "I'm with you." Her heart swelled, but beneath it, a quiet unease stirred. The skating world was a gilded cage, its elegance masking prejudice she'd felt in sidelong glances and curt dismissals. She pushed the thought aside, focusing on the rhythm of her blades. The rink was her sanctuary, its cold a balm to the heat of doubt. She moved into a layback spin, her body a perfect arc, her ponytail a dark ribbon against the ice's pale glow. Each movement was a story. Her mother, a seamstress, stitching her first costume from thrift store fabric. Her father, a bus driver, saving for her first skates. They'd believed in her when the world hadn't, and their faith was woven into every step. Harmony's routine for tonight was set to a soulful piano cover of Unstoppable, a song that felt like her pulse. She'd choreographed it herself, each jump a defiance, each spin a declaration. "I am here." Julian stood clapping as she finished her practice with a flourish, her arms outstretched, her chest heaving. "You're going to own that rink tonight," he said, descending the bleachers, his boots echoing in the quiet. Harmony skated to the edge, her breath visible in the cold air, and leaned into his embrace. His coat smelled of cedar and coffee, grounding her. "I just want to make them see me," she whispered, her voice soft but fierce. "Not my skin, not my story, just me." Julian cupped her face, his thumb brushing her cheek. "They'll see a champion, and if they don't, I'll make them." His smile was a spark, igniting her resolve. She stepped off the ice, her sneakers replacing her blades, and grabbed her canvas bag, its worn straps a contrast to the arena's polish. Inside was her silver competition gown, shimmering like moonlight, and a small photo of her mother smiling in a crisp nurse's uniform. Harmony tucked it close, a talisman against the challenges ahead. The clock above the rink read 7:12 a.m., the city waking beyond the arena's walls. Chicago's skyline loomed, a jagged silhouette against the dawn, indifferent to her dreams. But Harmony wasn't. Tonight she'd skate not just for herself, but for every girl who'd been told she didn't belong, for every dream dismissed. By a glance, the ice crown was her stage, and she'd claim it with fire in her veins and ice beneath her feet. As Julian draped an arm around her, guiding her toward the exit, the rink seemed to hold its breath, waiting for her return. The morning light faded, but Harmony's resolve burned brighter. She was ready, not just to skate, but to soar. The Chicago Ice Arena's locker room pulsed with the electric hum of anticipation, its air thick with the scent of hairspray and nervous sweat. At 5:30 p.m. on February 12, 2025, the space was a hive of activity, skaters adjusting sequined dresses and lacing skates with trembling fingers. The fluorescent lights cast harsh shadows on the tiled floor, amplifying the stakes of the Windy City Ice Crown competition, set to begin in just 90 minutes. Harmony Brooks stepped through the door, her presence a quiet storm. Her long, glossy, black hair was still tied in a sleek ponytail, swaying gently as she moved. Her dark skin glowed under the lights, and her silver competition gown, folded carefully over her arm, shimmered like liquid moonlight. In her other hand, she carried a velvet-lined case holding her custom sapphire blue skates, a gift from her husband, Julian. Her brown eyes, sharp with focus, scanned the room, but beneath her calm, a current of resolve thrummed. The locker room was a microcosm of the skating world's polished cruelty, its benches lined with competitors whose smiles hid sharp edges. Harmony felt the weight of their gazes as she crossed the threshold, her sneakers silent on the tiles. She was no stranger to these looks, eyes that lingered on her skin, her casual hoodie, her unapologetic presence in a sport that often preferred conformity over courage. Setting her bag on a bench, she unzipped it, revealing the gown that would soon transform her into a vision on ice. But before she could unpack, a voice sliced through the chatter, cold and deliberate. "This rink isn't for you." The words came from Kendra Walsh, a 26-year-old skater whose platinum blonde hair gleamed like a crown under the lights. She stood by the lockers, her crimson dress hugging her frame, her green eyes narrowed with malice. Kendra was a darling of the skating elite, her family's wealth and connections ensuring her a spotlight. But her heart was as icy as the rink outside, her ambition laced with venom. She leaned against a locker, arms crossed, her lips curling into a sneer. "Go back to where you came from." The words landed like a slap, sharp and public, drawing gasps from a few skaters and smirks from others. The air thickened, the room's hum fading into a tense hush. Harmony's jaw tightened, her fingers pausing on her bag's zipper. She'd heard these barbs before, in rink lobbies, at regional meets, in whispered comments from judges who thought she couldn't hear. But Kendra's attack was bold, unmasked. A challenge thrown in front of witnesses. Harmony straightened, her brown eyes locking onto Kendra's, unflinching. "The ice judge's skill, not skin," she said, her voice steady, each syllable a blade honed by years of defiance. The room held its breath, skaters glancing between the two women, some shifting uncomfortably, others leaning in, eager for drama. Kendra's laugh was a cruel shard, cutting through the silence, and her clique, a trio of skaters in pastel leotards, snickered, their eyes glinting with complicity. "You think you belong here?" Kendra stepped closer, her voice dropping to a venomous whisper, loud enough for the room to hear. "This is the Ice Crown, not some charity showcase." Her words were a calculated jab, meant to diminish, to remind Harmony of the barriers she'd faced in a sport that rarely welcomed her. Harmony's pulse quickened, but her face remained a mask of calm. She set her gown on the bench, its silver fabric catching the light like a silent rebuttal. "I earned my place here, Kendra," she said, her tone even but firm. "Save your energy for the ice." The retort was quiet, but it carried the weight of her truth, a defiance that made Kendra's smirk falter for a fleeting moment. As Harmony began lacing her practice skates, she noticed Kendra lingering near her bag, her movements too casual, too deliberate. The locker room buzzed again, skaters returning to their preparations, but Harmony's instincts prickled. At 5:50 p.m., she opened the case containing her competition skates, standard ones provided by the organizers to ensure fairness. Her breath caught. The laces were slashed, frayed ends dangling like broken promises, and the blades were dulled, scratched as if scraped against stone. Gasps rippled through the room, heads turning. A young skater, barely 16, covered her mouth, her eyes wide. Kendra stood a few feet away, her face a mask of feigned shock, but her green eyes betrayed a flicker of triumph. "Tough break," she taunted, tossing her blonde hair, her voice dripping with mock sympathy. "Guess you're out of luck." The words were a spark in a room full of kindling, igniting whispers and sidelong glances. Harmony's heart pounded, anger flaring in her chest, but she refused to let it spill. She'd faced Sabotage before. Missing. Costumes, tampered music tracks. But this was personal, a direct assault on her dream. The Ice Crown was her chance to prove she belonged, to silence the doubters with her blades. She wouldn't let Kendra steal that. Her hands steady, she reached into her canvas bag, past her mother's faded photo, and pulled out the velvet case, holding Julian's gift, the sapphire blue skates, their leather gleaming, the word unbreakable etched in silver. The room fell silent, all eyes on her. "I make my luck," Harmony said, her voice low but resonant, her gaze piercing Kendra's. The air crackled, a standoff frozen in time. Kendra's smirk wavered, her confidence cracking like thin ice, under Harmony's resolve. The other skaters watched, some with awe, others with unease, as Harmony opened the case, the sapphire skates catching the light like a beacon. She lifted one, its blade sharp and pristine, a symbol of Julian's belief in her. The locker room seemed to shrink, the walls closing in with the weight of the moment. Harmony's fingers brushed the engraving, her mother's voice echoing in her mind. "Never let them dim your light." She wouldn't. Not now, not ever. At 5:55 p.m., she stood, the sapphire skates in hand, her ponytail swaying like a banner of defiance. The competition was an hour away, and Harmony Brooks was ready to claim her place, not with words, but with the fire in her blades. The Chicago Ice Arena thrummed with the pulse of 3,000 spectators, their anticipation a living thing under the blazing lights. At 7:15 p.m. on February 12, 2025, the rink lay pristine, its icy surface a mirror reflecting the dreams about to unfold. The air carried the faint tang of frost and the murmur of a crowd hungry for spectacle. Harmony Brooks stood at the rink's edge, her silver competition gown shimmering like a shard of moonlight, her sapphire blue skates, Julian's gift, engraved with unbreakable, gleaming like stars against the ice. Her long, glossy black hair, tied in a sleek ponytail, swayed as she adjusted her stance, her dark skin radiant under the spotlights. Her brown eyes burned with a quiet fire, the sabotage in the locker room not a weight, but a spark, igniting. Her resolve. Tonight, at the Windy City Ice Crown, she would not just skate, she would soar. The crowd hushed as the announcer's voice boomed, "Harmony Brooks, Chicago." A ripple of applause greeted her, but beneath it, Harmony felt the undercurrent of doubt. She'd seen it in the locker room stares, heard it in Kendra Walsh's venomous words. The skating world, with its polished elegance, often saw her skin before her skill. But as she stepped onto the ice, her blades whispering against the surface, those doubts faded. The rink was her truth, her canvas, and she was ready to paint it with defiance. In the front row, Julian Hart sat, his navy coat crisp, his blue eyes locked on her with unwavering pride. His hands clasped tightly, as if holding her dream as carefully as he held her heart. His presence was a beacon, grounding her in the storm of nerves. The music began, a soulful piano rendition of Unstoppable, its notes rising like a heartbeat. Harmony glided forward, her movements fluid, each step a declaration of her right to be here. Her silver gown caught the light, scattering flecks of brilliance across the ice, her ponytail a dark ribbon trailing her grace. The sabotage, Kendra's cruel act of slashing her competition skates, hadn't broken her. Instead, it had fueled her, the sapphire skates a reminder of Julian's belief, of her own unyielding spirit. She launched into a spiral, her body an elegant arc, her blades carving clean lines that sang of resilience. The crowd leaned forward, their breath held, captivated by the story she wove with every glide. Kendra Walsh had skated earlier, her crimson dress a stark contrast to her cold precision. Her routine, clocked at 7:05 p.m., was technically flawless, sharp spins, controlled jumps, but it lacked soul, a performance that dazzled but didn't linger. The judges had scored her 89.4, a number that hung over the arena like a challenge. Harmony felt its weight but didn't falter. Her routine was more than technique. It was her life. Her mother's late-night sewing costumes, her father's sacrifices for lessons, every whisper that told her she didn't belong. She pushed into a triple Lutz, her body soaring, her landing flawless. The crowd erupted, a wave of cheers crashing through the arena, shaking the rafters. Julian's smile was a beacon, his hands clapping furiously, his pride a silent vow. Harmony's spins were liquid fire, each turn tighter, faster, her ponytail whipping like a banner of defiance. The music swelled, its chords wrapping around, her amplifying her power. She moved into a layback spin, her back arched, her face tilted to the heavens, as if daring the world to deny her. The audience was spellbound, their applause a heartbeat syncing with her own. She felt the ice beneath her, solid yet yielding, a partner in her dance. Every jump was a rebuttal to Kendra's cruelty, every glide a rejection of the prejudice that had shadowed her career. She landed a double axel, her blades biting the ice with precision, and the crowd surged to their feet, their cheers a thunderclap that drowned out doubt. At 7:20 p.m., she transitioned into her final sequence, a series of jumps that pushed her to the edge of control. The music's crescendo mirrored her heart, each note a pulse of triumph. She launched into a triple axel, the arena holding its breath as she spun through the air, her gown a silver comet, her sapphire skates flashing. The landing was perfect, her blades slicing a clean arc, and the crowd exploded. a standing ovation shaking the arena's steel frame. Harmony's chest heaved, her breath visible in the cold air, but her smile was radiant, unbreakable. She finished with a flourish, arms outstretched, her ponytail still, her eyes finding Julian's. His nod was a silent, "I knew you could," his pride a warmth that cut through the rink's chill. Backstage, Kendra watched from the shadows, her green eyes narrowed, her earlier smirk gone. Her clique whispered, their confidence shaken by the crowd's fervor. Harmony's performance wasn't just a routine. It was a reckoning, a statement that echoed beyond the ice. The judges, a panel of 5 in their glass booth, scribbled furiously, their faces unreadable but their pens moving with urgency. Harmony glided to the rink's edge, her breath steadying, her heart full. She'd poured her soul into those 5 minutes, each movement a defiance of the sabotage, of the voices that said she didn't belong. The crowd's applause lingered, a tide that carried her forward. As she stepped off the ice, her sapphire skates silent, Julian stood, his hands still clapping, his blue eyes glistening. She felt the weight of the moment, not just her performance, but the battle she'd fought to stand here. The arena buzzed, spectators whispering, phones capturing her exit. The judges' scores were minutes away, but Harmony already knew. She'd skated not for their numbers, but for herself, for every black girl who'd dreamed on ice. Her gown shimmered as she moved toward the tunnel, her ponytail swaying, a quiet promise that this was only the beginning. The rink seemed to hold its breath, waiting for the verdict, but Harmony Brooks had already risen above. The Chicago ice arena vibrated with the afterglow of performance, its air thick with the scent of anticipation and the faint chill of ice. At 8:00 p.m. on February 12, 2025, the 3,000 spectators sat on the edge of their seats, their murmurs a low hum beneath the arena's blazing lights. The rink, still glistening from Harmony Brooks' transcendent performance, seemed to hold its breath as the judges' booth glowed with finality. Harmony stood in the tunnel, her silver gown shimmering like a captured star, her sapphire blue skates, engraved with unbreakable, catching flecks of light. Her long, glossy black ponytail hung still, her dark skin radiant despite the sweat beading on her brow. Her brown eyes, fierce yet steady, fixed on the scoreboard above, where her fate would soon be sealed. The crowd's earlier cheers echoed, in her heart, but now silence reigned, heavy with expectation. In the front row, Julian Hart, her husband, sat with his navy coat unbuttoned, his blue eyes locked on the scoreboard, his hands clasped so tightly his knuckles whitened. His pride in Harmony was a tangible force, a warmth that reached her across the arena. She'd skated her soul onto the ice, defying the sabotage of her competition skates, her performance a blazing rebuttal to prejudice. Now, at 8:02 p.m., the EE announcer's voice crackled through the speakers, cutting through the tension like a blade. "Ladies and gentlemen, the scores for the Windy City Ice Crown." The crowd leaned forward, phones raised, capturing the moment. Harmony's breath caught, her fingers brushing the hem of her gown, a quiet prayer for her dream. The scoreboard flashed. Harmony Brooks, 92.7. A roar erupted, a tidal wave of applause that shook the arena's steel frame. The crowd surged to their feet, their cheers a thunderclap of validation. Harmony's heart soared, her eyes glistening as the announcer continued. Kendra Walsh, 89.4. Second place. The name landed like a stone, the gap between their scores a chasm Kendra couldn't cross. Harmony's victory was undeniable. Her performance, a tapestry of grace and defiance, crowning her the Ice Queen. At 8:04 p.m., the head judge, a stern woman in a black blazer, stepped forward, holding the diamond-encrusted tiara, its facets sparkling like a constellation. Harmony glided to the center of the rink, her sapphire skates silent, her gown a silver flame under the lights. The crowd's ovation swelled as the tiara was placed on her head, the diamonds catching the spotlights, casting prisms across her dark skin. Her ponytail swayed as she bowed, her smile radiant but composed, a queen claiming her throne. Julian rushed from his seat, navigating the crowd to reach the rink's edge, his face alight with love. "My queen," he whispered, his voice thick with emotion, enveloping her in a hug that felt like home. The cameras flashed, capturing the moment. Harmony, crowned, her husband's arms around her, the arena alive with celebration. But the triumph was fragile, a glass crown under threat. At 8:05 p.m., a sharp voice cut through the joy like a shard of ice. "This is a scam!" Kendra Walsh pushed through the crowd, her crimson dress stark against her flushed face, her platinum, blonde hair disheveled. Her green eyes blazed with fury. Her second-place finish a wound she refused to bear. "She doesn't deserve that crown," she shouted, her words echoing in the suddenly hushed arena. "People like her shouldn't even be here." The accusation was a thunderbolt, raw and venomous, drawing gasps from the crowd. Spectators froze, their phones still recording, capturing the ugliness of her outburst. Harmony stood tall, her tiara glinting, her brown eyes steady despite the sting of Kendra's words. The air crackled, the arena a battlefield where prejudice bared its teeth. Julian stepped forward, his 6'2" frame towering, his blue eyes flashing with a fury he rarely showed. The crowd parted, sensing a storm. "Kendra Walsh," he said, his voice low but sharp enough to cut glass. "You don't insult my wife." The words landed like a gavel, silencing Kendra's protests, her bravado faltering under his gaze. The arena was a held-in breath, every eye on Julian, his navy coat a stark contrast to the rink's white expanse. Kendra scoffed, her arms crossing defiantly, but her confidence was a crumbling facade. "You can't talk to me like that," she spat, her voice trembling. But Julian's presence was a wall she couldn't breach. He stepped closer, his tone unyielding, each word a blade forged in love and justice. "You don't get to diminish her," he said, his voice carrying to the farthest seats. "Harmony earned this crown every spin, every jump." The crowd murmured, some nodding, others filming, their phones capturing the clash. Harmony's heart pounded, not from fear but from the strength of Julian's defense, a shield against Kendra's venom. She stood beside him, her tiara a symbol of her victory, her sapphire skates a testament to her resilience. Kendra's face twisted, her eyes darting to the crowd, seeking allies but finding none. Her clique, once vocal, stood silent, their pastel leotards fading into the background. The judges watched from their booth, their faces unreadable but alert, the weight of Kendra's words hanging heavy. A spectator in the third row, a young black woman, raised her phone, her lens steady, her expression one of quiet solidarity. Harmony's gaze met hers, a fleeting connection that spoke of shared battles. The arena's lights seemed to brighten, casting Kendra's malice in stark relief. Julian's hand found Harmony's, his touch a quiet vow, grounding her in the storm. Kendra took a step back, her defiance wilting under the crowd's scrutiny, her outburst a misstep she couldn't retract. At 8:07 p.m., Harmony lifted her chin, her voice soft but clear, cutting through the tension. "I skated for me, not you," she said to Kendra, her words a gentle rebuke, her tiara glinting with each syllable. The crowd erupted again, their cheers a tide lifting her higher. Julian squeezed her hand, his pride a beacon. The clash was over, but its echoes lingered, a spark that would soon ignite a larger fire. Harmony stood unbroken, her crown secure, her heart alight with the truth of her triumph. The Chicago ice arena crackled with tension, its air heavy with the aftermath of Kendra Walsh's venomous outburst. At 8:08 p.m. on February 12, 2025, the rink's lights cast stark shadows across the ice, a stage where victory and prejudice collided. Harmony Brooks stood at the center, her silver gown shimmering like a beacon, the diamond-encrusted tiara of the Windy City ice crown glinting on her head. Her long, glossy black ponytail hung still, her dark skin radiant under the spotlights, her brown eyes steady despite the sting of Kendra's words. People like her shouldn't be here. The crowd of 3,000, still reeling from the clash, held its breath, their phones raised, capturing every heartbeat of the moment. Julian Hart, Harmony's husband, stood beside her. His 6'2" frame a tower of resolve, his navy coat open, his blue eyes blazing with a fury that burned cold and precise. Julian's voice, sharp as a blade, had silenced Kendra's accusation with a single line. "You don't insult my wife." Now, as Kendra stood defiant in her crimson dress, her platinum blonde hair disheveled, her green eyes flickering with desperation, Julian stepped forward, his presence commanding the arena. The crowd leaned in, sensing a reckoning. Kendra's scoff was a fragile shield, her arms crossed tightly, but the weight of Julian's gaze cracked her bravado. At 8:09 p.m., he raised a tablet, its screen glowing with a security image time-stamped 5:57 p.m., showing Kendra near Harmony's bag in the locker room, a pair of scissors glinting in her hand. The crowd gasped, a collective intake of breath that echoed like a thunderclap. "You sabotaged her skates," Julian said, his voice low but lethal, each word a hammer striking Kendra's facade. The image was damning. Kendra's hand poised over Harmony's competition skates. The laces later found slashed, the blades dulled. Harmony's heart pounded, not with fear but with vindication. She'd suspected Kendra's malice, but seeing it exposed, frozen in time, was a blade of truth cutting through the lies. The judge's booth, perched above the rink, stirred, the 5 panelists exchanging glances, their faces tightening with the gravity of the evidence. Kendra's voice trembled, her defiance crumbling. "You can't prove anything," she spat, but her words were hollow, drowned by the crowd's murmurs. A spectator in the second row, a black man in a gray jacket, zoomed his phone's camera, capturing the tablet's screen, his expression one of quiet triumph. The arena's air grew electric, charged with the promise of justice. Julian turned to the head judge, a stern woman in a black blazer whose pen had paused mid-note. "I'm requesting Kendra Walsh's second-place title be revoked for unethical conduct," he said, his tone unyielding, his words carrying to the farthest seats. The crowd roared, a wave of approval that shook the arena's steel frame. Kendra's face paled, her green eyes darting to her clique, who stood frozen, their pastel leotards fading into the shadows. The head judge nodded, her voice steady as she addressed the arena at 8:12 p.m. "Based on the evidence, Kendra Walsh is disqualified." The scoreboard flickered, Kendra's name erased, her 89.4 score vanishing like smoke. The crowd erupted, their cheers a tidal wave washing over Kendra's defeat. Kendra staggered, her crimson dress a stark contrast to her ashen face. "This is unfair," she shouted, but her voice was swallowed by the crowd's fervor. Julian faced her, his blue eyes cold, his voice a final verdict. "You're banned from every hard-owned rink worldwide," he said, his words cutting through the noise. "Leave now." The crowd parted as 2 security guards in black uniforms approached, their faces impassive. Kendra's protests died in her throat as they escorted her toward the exit, her heels clicking on the concrete, a metronome of her fall. Spectators filmed, their phones a chorus of lenses capturing her disgrace, the arena alive with the sound of justice. Harmony stood still, her tiara glinting, her sapphire skates a silent testament to her resilience. She hadn't sought this confrontation, but it had found her, and she met it with the same grace she brought to the ice. Julian's hand brushed hers, his touch a quiet anchor in the storm. The crowd's cheers were for her, but also for this moment, a public reckoning for the prejudice that had tried to dim her light. A young girl in the 5th row, her braids adorned with ribbons, stood on her seat, clapping furiously, her eyes shining with pride. Harmony's gaze met hers, a fleeting connection that spoke of shared dreams, of battles won not with anger, but with truth. At 8:14 p.m., Julian turned to the crowd, his voice resonant, carrying the weight of his love for Harmony. "Harmony earned this crown," he said, gesturing to the tiara sparkling on her head. No one will diminish her." The arena exploded again, a standing ovation that vibrated through the ice, the steel, the very air. Harmony's heart swelled, not just for the victory but for Julian's unwavering stand, a shield forged in love. The judge's booth was quiet now, their pens still. The evidence of Kendra's sabotage, a stain they couldn't ignore. The crowd's phones kept rolling, some already uploading clips to X, the hashtag Ice Queen Harmony forming in their minds. Kendra's cliques slunk away, their heads bowed, their earlier snickers silenced. The arena's lights seemed to burn brighter, casting Kendra's exit in stark relief, her crimson dress a fading ember. Harmony's silver gown shimmered as she stood beside Julian, her ponytail a dark banner of defiance. The moment was electric, a spark that would soon ignite a larger fire. But for now, it was hers, a triumph not just of skill, but of spirit. The crowd's applause lingered, a tide carrying her forward, her tiara a crown of truth. At 8:15 p.m., as the guards led Kendra through the exit, the arena's roar was a song of justice, and Harmony Brooks stood unbroken, her victory a beacon in the night. The Chicago Ice Arena, once a cauldron of conflict, had settled into a reverent hush by 9:30 p.m. on February 12, 2025. The ice gleamed under soft amber lights, its surface a mirror reflecting the quiet triumph of the night. The crowd of 3,000 had dispersed, leaving only echoes of their cheers, the air now carrying the faint scent of frost and fading perfume. Harmony Brooks stood alone at the rink's edge, her silver gown shimmering like a whisper of moonlight, the diamond-encrusted tiara of the Windy City ice crown resting lightly on her head. Her long, glossy black ponytail hung still, her dark skin radiant despite the emotional storm she'd weathered. Her brown eyes, soft yet resolute, traced the empty seats, her sapphire blue skates engraved with unbreakable, a silent testament to her victory. The weight of the moment, her crown won against prejudice, pressed gently on her heart, a victory both fierce and fragile. Julian Hart, her husband, approached from the tunnel, his navy coat unbuttoned, his blue eyes warm with a love that felt like sunlight on snow. The arena, now nearly empty, seemed to shrink around them, its vastness giving way to an intimate cocoon. His 6'2" frame moved with purpose, his sandy blonde hair catching the light as he stepped onto the ice, his boots steady against the slick surface. Harmony's breath caught, her pulse quickening not from the competition, but from the quiet intensity in his gaze. He'd stood as her shield, his words, "You don't insult my wife," still echoing in her mind, a vow that had turned the tide. Now as he reached her, the rink felt like their own, a sacred space where their love could breathe. At 9:32 p.m., Julian knelt before her, the ice cold beneath his knee, and drew a velvet box from his coat pocket. The crowd was gone, but the moment was theirs, a private coronation after the public storm. He opened the box, revealing a Bogosian emerald and diamond bracelet, its 3.2-carat gems sparkling like captured stars, worth $3.2 million. The emeralds glowed with a deep, verdant fire, the diamonds a constellation of light, each facet a reflection of their shared journey. "For my Ice Queen," Julian said, his voice low, trembling with emotion, as he fastened the bracelet on her wrist. The metal was cool against her skin, but his touch was warm, grounding her in a world that had tried to tear her down. Harmony's breath hitched, her brown eyes glistening, not for the bracelet's opulence but for the love it carried. "Julian," she whispered, her voice soft but heavy with feeling, "you always believed." Her fingers traced the bracelet's gems, each one a testament to his faith in her, from the days of her first rink to this crowning night. She'd faced Sabotage, Kendra Walsh's venom, the skating world's cold stares, but Julian's gift, the sapphire skates, now this bracelet, was more than wealth. It was a promise, a recognition of her unbreakable spirit. He rose, taking her hands, his thumbs brushing her knuckles. "Always," he replied, his voice a vow, his blue eyes locking onto hers, a sea of devotion that drowned out the echoes of doubt. The rink's lights dimmed, casting their shadows long and intertwined. A silhouette of unity against the ice. Harmony's tiara caught the glow, its diamonds scattering prisms that danced across Julian's coat. She leaned into him, her forehead resting against his chest, the faint cedar scent of his cologne anchoring her. "You didn't just give me this," she murmured, lifting her wrist, the bracelet sparkling. "You gave me strength." Julian's arms encircled her, his embrace a fortress, his heartbeat a rhythm that synced with hers. The arena, vast and silent, seemed to bow to their moment, the ice a mirror of their love. At 9:35 p.m., a janitor's broom scraped softly in the distance, the only sound breaking their quiet. Harmony pulled back, her eyes tracing the bracelet, its emeralds a reminder of her mother, who'd sewn her first skating costume with thrift store thread, her green eyes bright with pride. This victory, this gift was for her too, for every black woman whose dreams had been dismissed. Julian's fingers brushed her cheek, tilting her face to meet his gaze. "You didn't need me to win," he said, his voice steady. "You were always enough." Harmony's smile was radiant, her tiara glinting as she nodded, her ponytail swaying like a quiet flag of triumph. Outside, the first ripples of her victory stirred. At 9:40 p.m., a spectator's video, uploaded to Instagram from the arena's stands, began to spread, tagged Dark Ice Queen Harmony. The clip, Harmony's crowning, Kendra's banishment, Julian's stand, hit 500,000 views in minutes, the hashtag sparking comments like, "She's a legend," and "Justice on Ice." Harmony was unaware, her world now the rink, Julian's arms, the bracelet's weight. But the video was a spark, catching on the dry tinder of a world hungry for truth. A young black skater, watching from her phone, in a Chicago suburb, typed, "She's me," her fingers trembling with hope. By 9:45 p.m., they left the rink hand in hand, Harmony's gown rustling, her sapphire skates tucked in her canvas bag. The arena's exit loomed, Chicago's skyline a jagged silhouette beyond the glass doors. Julian's car waited, a sleek, black sedan, but the moment lingered, the bracelet a quiet anchor on her wrist. Harmony paused, glancing back at the ice, its surface scarred with the marks of her triumph. "This isn't the end," she said, her voice soft but certain. Julian squeezed her hand, his smile a promise. "It's just the beginning." The city's pulse thrummed outside, oblivious to the spark they'd ignited. Harmony's victory was more than a crown, more than a bracelet. It was a beacon, a light for those who'd been told they didn't belong. As they stepped into the night, the bracelet caught the streetlights, its emeralds glowing like her resolve. The arena stood silent, but its story was alive, carried in the video now racing across screens, a whisper of a movement that would soon roar. Harmony Brooks, crowned and unbroken, held Julian's hand, ready for whatever came next. The dawn of February 13th, 2025, broke over Chicago with a steely glow, its skyline a jagged silhouette against a sky heavy with promise. The Chicago Ice Arena, a silent monument to the previous night's drama, stood quiet, its ice untouched, its lights dimmed. Harmony Brooks was no longer there, but her shadow stretched long, a beacon that had ignited a fire beyond the rink. At 7 a.m., in a sleek Washington, D.C. office, Harmony sat at her desk, her silver competition gown replaced by a simple black sweater, her long, glossy black ponytail cascading down her back. Her dark skin caught the morning light filtering through the blinds, her brown eyes steady as she reviewed emails on her laptop. The diamond-encrusted tiara from the Windy City Ice Crown rested in a velvet case nearby, a symbol of her triumph, but it was the Boghassian emerald and diamond bracelet on her wrist, a $3.2 million gift from her husband Julian, that anchored her heart. Her canvas bag sat open, revealing a faded photo of her mother, a seamstress whose green eyes had sparkled with pride as she sewed Harmony's first skating costume. That photo was her talisman, a reminder of why she'd fought through Kendra Walsh's sabotage, through the skating world's cold stares, for every black girl whose dreams were dismissed. Harmony's victory, sealed at 8:02 p.m. the previous night, was more than a crown. It was a spark that had set the digital world ablaze. By 8:15 a.m., the Instagram video of her crowning, tagged Ice Queen Harmony, had surged to 10 million views. Its raw footage, her tiara gleaming, Julian's stand, Kendra's banishment, fueling a global conversation. The hashtag #CheckTheIce trended on X with 1.2 million posts, each a story of defiance, from black skaters denied rink time to Latina athletes questioned at meets. Harmony's phone, silenced on her desk, vibrated with unread messages. Reporters, from ESPN, a Vogue feature request, a podcast host begging for her voice. She ignored them, her focus on a draft email to her skating foundation, outlining scholarships for young skaters of color. Her legacy wasn't in the spotlight. It was in the doors she'd opened for others. At 9:00 a.m., the Rink network, owned by Julian Harttech, announced a $5 million initiative, the Harmony Fellowship, funding training for marginalized athletes. The press release, posted on X, garnered 500,000 likes, with comments like, "She's changing the game," flooding in. Harmony's heart swelled, not for the praise but for the promise of a future where talent, not skin, defined worth. Across Chicago, the skating world felt the tremors. At 10 a.m., the Illinois Skating Association issued a statement, mandating anti-bias training for all rinks, inspired by Harmony's stand. The policy cited her victory as a wake-up call, requiring real-time reporting of discrimination, with penalties for non-compliance. A rink manager in Evanston, reading the news, posted on X, "Harmony Brooks showed us what courage looks like. We're listening." Her story reached beyond the city. In Atlanta, a black skating coach launched the Brooks Blade program at 11:15 a.m., mentoring girls of color, its first session booked solid by noon. A 14-year-old participant, clutching a pair of second-hand skates, told a local reporter, "Harmony's my hero. She proved I belong." The ripple effect touched academia. At NYU's Sports Management School, a professor unveiled a new lecture at 12:30 p.m., The Ice Crown Reckoning, citing Harmony's triumph as a case study in ethical sportsmanship. The syllabus, shared on LinkedIn, was downloaded 8,000 times by evening, students tweeting, "Her skates broke barriers." In London, a skating academy adopted a Harmony audit, ensuring diverse judging panels. Its first meeting scheduled for 2 p.m. GMT. The policy's tagline, "Check the ice, not the skin," echoed Harmony's fight, its X post gaining 300,000 retweets. Her victory wasn't just personal. It was a blueprint, a call to dismantle the skating world's velvet-gloved prejudice. Kendra Walsh, meanwhile, had faded into obscurity. By 1 p.m., her name was a cautionary tale, blacklisted across Hart-owned rinks worldwide. A Reddit thread, "The Fall of Kendra Walsh," amassed 20,000 upvotes detailing her sabotage and banishment. A Chicago barista, recognizing her from the viral video, refused her service, posting on TikTok, "No room for prejudice here," with 1 million views. Kendra's career was ashes, her crimson dress a forgotten ember. Harmony, unaware of these details, focused on her work, her bracelet glinting as she typed. The gems caught the light, a reminder of Julian's love, of her mother's sacrifices, of a fight bigger than herself. At 3 p.m., Julian called from his Harttech office, his voice warm through the phone. "The world's talking about you," he said, his pride palpable. Harmony smiled, her fingers brushing the bracelet. "It's not about me," she replied. "It's about them, the kids who'll skate without fear." Julian's chuckle was soft, a sound that grounded her. He'd redirected $3.2 million from Harttech's profits to expand the Harmony Fellowship, a fact he hadn't shared, wanting her victory to stand alone. The announcement, posted at 4 p.m., sparked 2 million X impressions, with skaters worldwide pledging support. Harmony's office window framed Washington's dusk, the Capitol's dome a distant glow. She closed her laptop, her eyes falling on her mother's photo, its edges worn but its smile unbroken. This legacy was for her, for every black woman whose worth was judged by a glance. By 5 p.m., a new X-trend, Harmony Inspires, emerged. With 800,000 posts, stories of coaches hiring diverse staff, rinks offering free lessons to low-income kids, athletes refusing to bow to bias. A black skater in Harlem pinned a badge to her leotard, Brooks Blade. In Tokyo, a rink displayed Harmony's photo, captioned, Ice Queen World Changer. As the day faded, Harmony stood, her ponytail swaying, her bracelet a quiet anchor. Her victory had rewritten the rink's rules, not with noise but with truth. The world was listening and her legacy was just beginning. What's your take? Has a moment of courage ever defined your path, like Harmony's stand on the ice? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Your story could inspire the next spark. Thank you for joining us on this 50-minute journey through Harmony Brooks' triumph, a tale of resilience that rewrote the rules. We're grateful for every second you've spent with us. Hit that subscribe button to catch more stories of unbreakable spirits and share your city to join our global community. Until next time, keep shining, keep standing tall. We'll see you in the next story.